welfare family who can't afford to buy presents. You don't know if they've got an electric bill that needs to be paid. And those MREs expired in 2014. So they don't need to be stored. And I just think it's wrong. If they needed the money, it was theirs, leave it alone. And it was free, given to them, so, you know, don't get wrapped up in the little details. Those food handlers' cards should be preparing food. Anybody who doesn't have one really should be handling food. Do not use prepared food from an unknown source. If a little old lady, which you really don't know, comes to the door and has a huge pot of chili and says, I wanted to donate this, you don't want to hurt her feelings. You don't want to upset her. You go ahead and accept it and then dump it. Why? You don't want to hurt her feelings. 2, you don't know if that little lady was sent by somebody else with something in that chili to make you sick. Whether it was properly prepared or if it has been contaminated with something else.
Did you know you could take it?
Yeah, it's up to you. But if everybody gets food poisoning, it comes back on you.
You're not going to miss a free meal.
Okay, we got some good cooks on.
Yeah, we got some good cooks.
In Tyler County, our OEM director, his wife is the supervisor of the cooks in Citrusville Elementary. We eat a lot, and they bring in a lot. But just be careful. Use disposable plates and silverware. You don't want it to be cooking. We'll take about a 5-minute break. 5, 10.
We'll go ahead and get started. There's still some people that have committed to being here. I want to thank everybody for coming out and spending your time. Personally, I hope we never need to use this, but it's part of the system and we've got to do it. So we're going to start with training. And we're going to try to get this done. Now, Mary Jane just had a traumatic incident. She was in the boys' bathroom and didn't know the difference. So, got her out, and she's calmed down. So, well, I noticed Bill Jack scooted over away from her. He didn't want to be associated.
I thought somebody might have been having a heart attack.
Oh, yeah. When they saw you in there, they had a heart attack. Now,
I didn't get all partway.
you know, Mary Jane can't do anything about laughing, so that's good. But anyway.
What was the screaming?
You had to step on me.
What? Screaming? That was her on the way out. But anyway, yeah, she wondered what the screaming she heard was. I said, that was you on the way out. Anyway, I want to thank everybody for coming out. This is Penny Howard. She is former Red Cross director, I guess. She's volunteer with Tyler County now. She's giving up her time to come up here and present this to us. I'm sure that this class will be repeated in the county for different sections for different people who can't get here. But we've got the initial class off the ground today, and we'll go through this, and I think that you'll see that there's reasoning to do this. It's a really important section of the LEPC, and we're going to try to get this done, and we got a meeting coming up on the 15th, and Doddridge County will be up and running, and this is one of the things we've been waiting on, that and the website. But we're waiting on the website. There's no truth to the rumor. The first time the website came back was in Spanish, and we didn't think we had a high Spanish population, so we sent it back. So, but anyway, I'm going to turn it over to Penny. There's drinks, there's snacks over here. Enjoy yourself. If you have questions, ask them. Any class I've ever taught, that any of you have ever been around me, if you got questions, ask them. There's no questions that's stupid. The only stupid question is the one you don't ask and go away wondering about. Get an answer. Get an answer before you leave. We've got people here from law enforcement, the health department, the county commissions here. We've got people from all facets here. But please, volunteers are the most important thing we got in the county, and we want to take care of it and help them help us, because that's in a time of emergency, these are the people who are going to step up and help us, and that's really important. So, Penny, sure.
I want to thank you for inviting me. I got a call from Mike Walker, who's the Homeland Security man who's down in Charleston, and he said, Penny, you know that class you taught a year ago? I made this up for Tyler because we needed it done in our county. And as far as the Red Cross, I worked for them for about a year and was a volunteer. So I know a little bit, but I was in the United States Army. My husband refers to me as his little oxymoron. I was military intelligence. And then the second time I went into the Army, I was military police. So when Tom asked me to do this, and then word got out, and Mike calls, I hadn't touched this class for a year. And Mike calls, he said, Patty, would you be willing to do it for other counties? And I've got the first one on the list is Doddridge. It's Mcgabe County. I came out and talked to Pat last week. And I'm honored to be asked to do it. And I want you to know that your county, in a disaster, your priority is to help everybody, to take care of yourself. And you're doing an important job by being here to help the other people in your community and taking care of your own community. We can't always wait for Homeland Security or some other agencies around the United States to send in help. And sometimes they can't. We learned that during the last derecho, when the storm hit, that every county was affected. And we couldn't say, hey, county next door, could you bring me some equipment? They're all saying, we can't give it to you because we have to use it. So we have to fend for ourselves. And unfortunately, Pat and I've talked about it, if there is something like a dirty bomb or another 9/11 that happens in DC, Baltimore, Pittsburgh, guess where those people are coming? And you guys live along one of the main arteries going through the state. So you're the ones who are going to have to pick up on these people that need shelters. All right, before we get completely started, I want to know who all's here. I'd like you first to meet Chris. Chris, you want to introduce yourself and give us your name and what you do.
Chris Hoke. I volunteer with the Office of Emergency Management. I do search and rescue and SERP.
I'm Patsy Easter. I'm with the West Gene Fire Department. I'm
That's
like
why.
me.
Yeah. You follow.
Yeah.
Next name.
My name's Mariana Darrow. I'm a county resident, and I'm also with the Doddridge County Watershed Association.
Sir?
Well, I'm Jim Forster. I'm a conservation supervisor for Doddridge County, and I'm also associated with the Oxford Range and Community Building,
Which is one of our shelters.
3.
I'm early also.
Maureen Stanley Beaver, citizen, and also I write for local newspaper.
I'm Doug Calhoun. I'm a member of the Watershed Association.
Table in the back here.
I'm Robert Hawk. I'm a volunteer.
I'm Taylor Woodford with the Doddridge County Health Department, and I'm, I guess, in charge of threat preparedness now.
New threat preparedness coordinator.
That's very good.
And I'm Debbie Davis, administrator at Doddridge County Health Department.
I'm Miles Ball. I'm nobody, I guess.
Oh, come on, everybody's so better. You're a volunteer.
I'm Donna Ball, I'm a volunteer. Eddie Robinson, volunteer.
Greg Robinson, volunteer and Doddridge County Commission.
Ross. Also with the ladies outside.
I'm John Ross. I'm a volunteer at the West Fire Department.
Sir?
Mike Hamilton, I'm the Assistant Fire Chief of West Virginia. I'm the Deputy ODS Director and I'm the Executive Director of the
I'm his wife, Linda, and I'm Paul.
Okay.
I'm in the organization too, so I try.
Captain of the West Virginia Fire Department and Chief of Police of West Virginia. Doddridge County citizen. Military.
Mary Jane Shaver, I work with the Doddridge County.
In an emergency, shelter is going to be really important. And the deal is, when I set up this class, I'm giving you the basics. I am not going to tell you every detail of a shelter. I can't. I don't live in Doddridge County. I don't know the people here. I don't know the facilities you have. Only you do. So this class is very basic. You take this information, you put it together, and you should make the changes that you need for your county. The purpose of this course is designed to educate the student on selecting a site for a shelter, how to operate a shelter, and those things you need to be aware of for the writing of the after action report. If you do some of the things I'm going to tell you, it makes writing that report easier. And there are templates. Our director, Tom Cooper, sent me a template and said, Penny, this is the way I want you to do it. And because I had kept all my notes and logs, it only took me a day to do it, to write it and send it in. But you have to have the AAR in order to get money from the state. Subject covered. I'm going to talk about selecting a shelter, how to do it, opening a shelter, operating a shelter, closing the shelter, and the management. Now, when the first time I volunteered was at Camp Dawson when the Hurricane Katrina evacuees were brought there. And I just called and I said, what can I do to help? And they said, how fast can you get here? So I spent 3 weeks working over there in the family services and in the shelter. And that's where I got to learn a lot of this. And then I went to work for the Red Cross for a year. I was emergency services coordinator of the Wheeling office and had 8 counties, Panhandle, down to Tyler, and the 2 counties in Ohio. And I had to basically learn the differences in each county, the personalities, the population, the assets that each county had, and adapt to that. Well, I left the Red Cross, and now I volunteer solely for the Tyler County LEM Search and Rescue Team, Community Emergency Response Team, and putting this together. The site you select should adequately serve the needs of people you wish to provide shelter to in the event of an emergency. If you're going to have handicapped, you have to make sure that facility can handle handicapped. You have to think of the people in your community. What are we going to need here? You may have homeless. What are we going to do with them? Inspections. This is where my military background comes in. The military, if we do an inspection, we see what we've got, we see where we need to make changes, and they're done. And that helps us that's how the military stays in line, is doing inspections. There are 4 types of inspections. There's site selection inspection. You're going to inspect the building for everything. Before you even use it, you need to do a walkthrough and inspect. The opening inspection. You've heard of landlords. You go in, you look at your apartment before you rent it. You do a walkthrough, write everything down. That's going to be your opening time. Your site selection and your opening inspection looking for damage. Your daily inspection is done off and on during the day, first thing in the day, and then off and on during the day you're going to do inspections to make sure everything is running smoothly and where you need to adapt. The closing inspection, you have to do a walkthrough with the owner of the building and make sure that any damage that has appeared is accounted for, is noted, and pictures are taken, because you might get an application from that landlord at a later date saying, you owe me money because you damaged this. Well, if you damaged it, you got to pay for it, but if you didn't damage it, then you want to be able to prove that, because it could be expensive. Like I said, site selection is done before the need for the shelter arises. And you also want to pick a shelter that's not underwater, not going to be underwater or flooded. You want to pick a shelter that is going to be adequate in a snow removal. If you have a huge blizzard, are we going to be able to get into that shelter? Those kinds of issues. When a site selection inspection has been completed, then the OEM director will arrange a memorandum of understanding with the facility owner. And Pat's told me he's already done this with, what, 16 or 18?
18 shelters. Everything's in line. They're all established. If you look on the back 2 pages of your handout, there's a map in the county and a list of the shelters. Each one of these shelters have important assets. Now, they're all not going to do everything. The Doddridge County Health Department isn't going to shelter 40 people and feed them, but they have medical facilities, and there's 2 extra shelters to be added onto this at a later date that have already volunteered. But those are the ones that are existing around the county and we'll work around today. All this first stuff's been done with them.
All right, some of the information I'm going to give you today, in a few places I'm going to repeat, mainly because they're very important. With a shelter, you have to worry about the handicapped animals, and criminals. Those are the three things you have to be looking for and adapt for. Besides the people in your community, the other people in the community. Outside of the building, does the roof look okay? Rain, it's going to be able to hold snow. Can we get 10 feet of snow? Is that roof going to hold it? Any safety hazards? Is there an overhang from a roof? Is there a curb? Is there anything that caused somebody to get hurt? Walkways, are they safe? If they're all tore up and you're unable to walk on them, you want to make sure that nobody falls and gets hurt. These are just a couple of the issues. Handicap accessible. Everything has to be handicap accessible unless you say you can't be in this shelter because we can't make it handicap accessible. We do have this other shelter. You have to have some place for those who are handicapped. In the shelter that I did in Sistersville, that's where I'm from, in the fire department, we had 10 residents who were there for 2 weeks, and then I had maybe 30, 40 come in and out during the day. But I had one paraplegic who's on oxygen, a young girl, and I had a sex offender, and I had animals. So in one shelter, before we even had this course, I had to deal with all of them. So by having this course and listening to these things and making plans, you're prepared. I wasn't totally prepared. I kind of had to fly by the seat of my pants for that one. So you have to do what you have to do to take care of your community, but plan ahead. You're not going to be scrambling at the last minute. The parking lot. How many parking slots do you have? Yes, sir.
Back to the sex offender. How was that person identified?
That's a question that I'm struggling with in Tyler and the ones that I've taught so far. What we've come up with is that legally they have to identify themselves when they come into the shelter. That's law. They have to. That's an issue. And then there's the issue of law enforcement. We need to do an NCIC. What we're doing is we're setting up a computer system that will link in with the sex offender database so that when they check in, your driver's license, you look on the back of your driver's license, you know that barcode thing? The moment you scan that, it gives you all your information. Name, address, crimes, everything. That's on the back. It shows that it goes right into the main computer.
Are any of you sex offenders?
If you scan that, it should tell the person who's checking in. And we're working on a new computer system that's going to do that to help us. But it's
if you're in a critical situation like this, you might not have computer access.
You get a mile off 50 in any direction you don't have.
And if your power's out, etc., you don't have it. You don't have cell reception. That's like in a rural area like this, it's sort of.
We're toying with the idea. I talked to Penny about Penny the other day about it, and we're toying about a front door question that very simply says, are you a sex offender? Have you ever been a sex offender? And if they don't identify themselves right, PJ, they've created a felony?
Yes.
Okay, so we're just going to maybe have a notepad for each of the shelters with the simple information. Fill it out. If it checks yes, then we got a problem.
I mean, the other situation we have going on in this county right now, we have an extensive workforce in the drilling industry that is from all over the place, okay? So it's not like where we used to be a small community, pretty much new.
There's 32 sex offenders in Doddridge County, and most of us know who they are, right? Okay. Our problem is the people coming in, just like you said. So if we check the question off, that's all we can do right now.
But once you have access to a computer system and law enforcement, am I right that there is a national database for sex offenders?
Well, there's the West Virginia State Police.
Yeah, there's web. You can do that if you've got access to online. You can check it by area.
Well, we figured the outlying areas are. We're going to try to run the standard operating procedures, a briefing every day if we have a major situation. And you can bring our our registries in, we'll just run them when we get to town. That's the only thing we can do out in County. Smith community doesn't have, I don't think there's much satellite service out there. I mean.
They're what, I suppose, they're up and running, but they're on this side, the right there has Puerto Rico, the big trucks tore it down. So
Yeah.
They don't have Wi-Fi that far.
Well, we're just gonna wing that on a question of,
But here's something else you gotta think of. It's like there's a guy here from Texas. He's a registered sex offender in Texas. But the West Virginia law and the Texas law are different, and the way it worded it, he didn't have to register in West Virginia.
but federal law says that if he is requested, extradition is requested, and he does not present it. Okay, so we asked the question. I talked to state police about the other night, and at a meeting, and we come up with the idea, if you ask the question and they say no, then they've lied. They've created a felony. They've put themselves in jeopardy. So that's the only way we can do it. I mean, you know.
And I don't mean to frighten everybody and make this a big issue for us, but I have a book. I loaned it to Pat.
I gave it back to you.
Yeah. Wasn't it surprising?
What's that?
Wasn't it surprising? Sex offenders. When I started putting this class together, I knew that they were not in the shelter. I was looking to find out what can we do, what has other states done. Mississippi and Louisiana have an extensive system to take care of the problem, but there were websites dedicated by sex offenders, and all they did was plan on how they can get around the sex offender reporting law. And they're complaining, and they're suing, and they're doing everything they possibly can to force us to allow them back into the community without punishment. Does that make sense? They're organized. And in another state that, they've got that issue. It might not be a big issue here, but like we said, we've got people coming in who are not from the state of West Virginia. They're not reported in our state. So what are we going to do with these organizations? It's a big question, and it's something you cannot answer in one conversation. It's something that you're going to have to work on, adapt, like the information I'm giving you. Take it, work on it, adapt it. Do your own research, and then come back to the table with new ideas. They really should be in their own shelter.
But what happens if it's really bad, and they can't get to the shelter designated?
Then you identify them and maybe put them in another room.
Oh, okay.
Because the worst thing that you can have is if you've got a pedophile, child predator, and you've got children in the shelter, you don't want those parents not knowing he's a sex offender, and you don't want to give him access.
You're saying you don't want him running the nursery?
Yes, exactly.
What if he volunteers?
Well, the other question that came up the other night was, what if the sex offender brings their family with him?
Yes.
Okay, so now you have to segregate the family too. You can't just segregate him. So you're penalizing the family for somebody else's crime.
Well, you have to know what their crime is.
Right, that's.
Because there's different elements here.
The way I put it, the way I look at it is, if you are adjudicated in a court of law to be a sex offender, you report it, and you need to be handled that way, period. No preferential treatment, and just handle it. And do not overly treat them bad, Because like you said, there are different degrees, but just go straight, black and white. If you did it, you did it, if you did it, you did it. And then try to work your system around that. If you show any favoritism, though, remember there's going to be another one over here saying, hey, you let him do that, then I get to get to you. So be careful. Handicap says grass areas to walk animals. And you have animals that are coming in, they are not in the shelter, but they might be near. So people have to be able to walk them. Because they're going to be weather affected, they're going to be a flood. Your dormitory, which is the area where everybody sleeps. You should have 9 square feet per cot.
Now, I spent most of my life in dormitories, and I can assure you that 9 square foot will not set up a cot.
Well, those were the limits that we came up with, but they're negotiable. And I'm with you. I think it should be more. That was just one limit we went with.
Take 6 by 3 to set up a cot, and the minimum you have between cots is 18 inches, preferably 36 inches head to toe. You sleep head to toe.
Yeah, I just looked at that, when you said that 9 feet, that is a mistake. That is totally a mistake. And it, like you said, it should be the top, the head of one cot here, and the head of the other one down here, head to toe, opposite, to keep you from catching any diseases or passing viruses and everything. I'd rather smell their stinky feet than catch some disease that might be good. You're right, that 9 square feet does need to be changed, okay? You're going to need to know how many cots that shelter is going to need and how many you already have on hand. We had Tyler, we went ahead and bought a trailer with 50 cots and all the accessories we needed for them. We also have, you're going to need cots that can handle large people, please. The health department, our health department has cots that can handle IV poles, medical. And I think our county bought 1 or 2 and put them on that trailer too. But you're going to need the cot, the blanket. We splurged and got like a little paper sheet type thing that could be put on the cot so you're not directly on it. Then we got a pillow, and I said we just throw the pillow away. Those are just really rincy, pinky little things. I just throw them away, and Tom says, no, we'll get the paper pillowcase. But, and then the blankets, those are the things you want to see what you're going to need for your shelter. Like I said, everyone's going to be different. So set it up the way you want it. Tables and chairs, you have to have somebody to sit, and you have to have tables so they can sit and play games, so they can sit and read the newspaper, or so they can play play cards, do whatever they want, but have a table where they eat everything. Television, entertainment, and news. In a shelter, when you're working with clients, you're going to have people who are going to be on edge, nervous, bored. So my suggestion is to have at least 1, if not 2 TVs. One at the one end dedicated to entertainment, family or entertainment, nothing PG over R, none of that. But it has to be family type movies, Little Mermaid, Hook, Harry Potter, something. But the other one should be dedicated to news, because everybody wants to know what's going on out in the community. We want to hear how bad it is. What's going on? Can you tell us? They want to watch the news. I've seen this where they're glued 24 hours to the news. Electrical outlets. You have to know how many you've got in that building, or in that area. And there's going to be an issue because everybody has technical equipment, electronic equipment. If everybody plugs it at the same time, and you're on the generator, you might cause some problems. So when it comes to electrical outlets, you want to know how many you've got and how many you can spare for the clients. And you can't let the clients hog it from somebody else. If one client wants to charge their computer, great. The moment it's charged, hook somebody else in. Don't keep it, don't allow them to have everything. You want to have a sign-in out area. People coming into the shelter need to sign in. Even if they're a visitor, you might want to have a separate visitor sheet. But they have to sign in so you know who's in that building. And when they leave, even if they're going just downtown for a half hour, they'll be right back. You sign out. Because if something happens, and we don't know that you've left, we have an issue. We're going to be sending cops looking for you. It causes problems. You need to keep your people, you need to know where they're at and what's going on at all times. Your dormitory, you need to worry about your ventilation. Is there enough air moving in there? Are they people going to be uncomfortable? Lighting. What kind of lighting is in here? Are we going to need more lights brought in? Is it fluorescent, which bothers people? You need to find out. Area for phones for clients. Sometimes when there's a national disaster, I've seen phone banks brought in and plugged in. So you might want to consider that. And you can ask for those to be brought in too. Distribution area, food, clothing, etc. We found that during the derecho, when we had our distribution set up, this was the fire hall. What we did was we had distribution and shelter in the same spot. We just moved our fire trucks out of the bay, put the food and water in there, distributed, and then it was right there with the clients. Yeah, computer area. We had Wi-Fi in our fire department, which was free to everybody. And you might want to set up a computer too where people can get on and check things. Kitchen. Utensils that you have there, your stove, type of fuel uses. microwave, food prep area, ice machine, sinks, outlets, food kept on hand, that's important. I had the sheriff from Tyler County when he was the officer in the school. I said, how do you like it? And we were talking about disasters, and when they built Tyler Consolidated, they were supposed to have a high water road that went up over the hill at the back of the school. If you've ever been by there, you know there's a creek with a bridge, and it goes underwater. So I asked Bob about it, and he says, well, he said, the first day I went in there, he said, well, how much food you got? And they didn't have much. And he said, I told him, you better get some more food in here, because I'm not going to be trapped with 100, 150 students who are hungry, 100 teenagers. So he said, you're not going to trap me in here. So now they've got more food on hand. But that water road was never built, its path, Boston's Canyon, walk over it. That's how we got the extra food in our school. Bathrooms. We need to know how many there are. You might need more. And they can be brought in, porta johns. Men and women, the number of toilets and sinks. The toilet paper, they have it on hand, hand towels, soap, female necessities. And report to the OEM if portable facilities are needed. If you go into the shelter, you start getting overwhelmed with people, and it's causing a problem, you need to tell him, the OEM director, so he can order more in or make the report, hey, we have a problem here, we need to fix it. Because if you aren't aware of the problem, if you're not inspecting and finding those problems, it might turn around and bite you in the butt later. You want to get it before it can be a problem. Showers. One of the rules for other agencies is that you have to have a shower in order to be called a shelter. Sometimes that is not possible. Our fire department, we had one shower. Our OEM office is in a big, the old high school there in Middleburg, and they have a shower there. Our other facilities do not have showers. So if you're going to be in the shelter for 2 weeks, you might request that state sends in, they can bring in tractor trailers, it's like a truck. Bring it in with showers and bathroom facilities for you.
Yeah, we got fire hoses.
Exactly.
Lots of water trucks.
That's all right, we got lots of water trucks over
I remember during that last storm, when I was at the Sisterville Fire Hall, it was like the second day. I was standing there with the fire chief, and his tractor trailer pulls up, said, I have water. We had no idea where it came from. This guy drove from Tennessee all night to get to us. We didn't know it was coming. The director didn't know it was coming. So he said, how much do I leave? Because he was told to go to Sistersville, Middleburg, and West Union. So I called our director, and he says, I'll take 3 pallets. But our fire chief, by the time they got the truck down there to unload it, because we had to use a utility truck, he took 6. So we put him in the fire hall. The OEM director says, would you get the water? Yeah, we got it. You got enough? Yeah, I wasn't going to tell him we'd taken 6 instead of 3. So our fire chief gave the guy directions to get to Middleburg and to deliver the water. He didn't give very good directions, which I don't know how that could happen because which is right there on the road. The guy missed it. Went all the way to West Union. Oh, sweet. Yeah. So our director was sitting out there going, where is this water? And Steve and I are going, oh my gosh, we tell the director we've got more than we were supposed to. We just kept our mouths shut because we had another tractor trailer come in about half an hour later. But nobody knew where it came from. We don't know what agency sent it. The truck driver had no idea. He just said, I told dispatch, go to this place, pick up this water, take it here. Be in Sistersville, Middleburg, and West Union. All right, your command post. You should have a table, conference table, some kind of table. Electrical outlets for all of your equipment. Your meeting area for your staff. That will be around your conference table and everything. You might want to have a little private office if you can set it up with just the OEM director or your directors to talk privately. We were always going outside trying to find some place. Communication equipment. You need to determine whether you need additional phone lines, radios, or with us, we have got a satellite system now, where we have a truck. We have a satellite on, and we're hooking up a satellite system for phones for our shelters. Television for the weather and news. This television became an issue at the fire hall because I told the guys, You are under no way to ever change the station in this office from the Weather Channel or the News Channel. Do not change that channel. One of the two, that's it. I came back in later. I'd been off a couple hours, went home, took a shower, I come back, and they're watching a ball game on TV. I walked in and I said, "Who turned that channel?" One of the firemen said, "You did." I immediately jumped the guy. I hadn't seen Phil for a couple days, so I immediately jumped him. "Phil, why did you change that station?" He said, "Nobody told me I couldn't." What these little clowns had done was set up the older guy, make him change the station, so he got in trouble and not them. But the question was, well, why not? I told them that I did not want a member of the public or a politician or a news media reporter coming into my shelter and seeing the staff sitting there watching a ball game in the middle of a disaster. I said, if you want to watch a ball game, you go out there with the people in the door, the clients in the dormitory, and watch whatever they're watching. Do not change someone in the CP, because I didn't want it to come back and bite me. This person who's going to get yelled at is going to be me. You embarrass us in the public because you're watching ball games where everybody else is suffering. At that time, most people didn't have electricity. We did because we were on generator. So you don't want to tip them off. Fax machines available and internet. Cooper and I did my daily reports on the internet. We eventually were able to send them to each other. Computers for reports, communication, printers, copiers, clerical needs. At no time are the clients supposed to be in the CP. At no time. Unless they're volunteering in here. You don't want them getting information or hearing bits and pieces of information and misunderstanding anything. At no time should staff be watching regular TV and movies. Got to emphasize that. I've seen this happen, and it's really can be messy. Pets are not allowed in the shelter unless it's a service dog or animal. They're not allowed in. There should be a separate area for pets. Owners provide food, the cage. Owners feed, walk, and clean up after. Separate area for walking pets. We'll talk about the grassy area. And the pets have to be on a leash or in their cage at all times. It is not your responsibility, it is theirs. If they begin to neglect that animal, say you've got 100-degree heat, the cage is out in the sun, then it's a law enforcement issue. But it's not your issue. Meals. If you get the clients into a routine, the faster you get them into a routine, the better. Because it settles them down. Everybody goes into a routine and starts getting things back to normal. They should have 3 meals a day and at least 1 should be hot. And should have snacks off and on. When your adrenaline level is high because you're in the middle of a disaster, you're consuming a lot of calories, you're using up a lot of calories, you need to consume more and keep them drinking water. So have the snacks. And MREs, everybody know what an MRE is?
Fuel ready.
Yeah. The little heater that's in the packets, we discovered, Firewall, that if you take that heater and throw it away too soon in the trash can, it'll catch fire. So, and they can actually burn you too if you're not holding them properly. So we were having to lay them out on the cement until we could throw them away. And we were using extra paper towels and stuff to hang on to them. They're very hot, but oh, were they good. And we had an issue with, we were passing out MREs and water. And around Christmas, I went into a meeting and some of the guys in there were saying, those MREs that we gave out to the families, well, they're selling them on Facebook. And these guys were going to report that. That's not right. They're not going to get help next time. And what I said to them, and what I truly believe, is it's none of your business. You don't, it's Christmas. You don't know it's Christmas. I don't think Pat. Oh, there he is.
I'm right here.
Do you know what the ID cards for emergency personnel and volunteers? Okay, it looks exactly like your driver's license, and it costs our county like $5 a card. Your OEM director, what they do is they get your information, and then they send it to the state, and then you go up to the DMV, and they take your picture, just like they do your driver's license, and they give you one of these, and it's mine down here. I have to get it changed. It says Tyler County Emergency Services, Red Cross. And,
that's not a concealed carry permit?
I wish. But there's no expiration date on it, and then of course on the back it has barcode with all the information. And with your volunteers, because of all the people, the influx you've got going on, in order to make sure you don't have somebody slip into your shoulder trying to pretend they're authority, have them issue these. Oh, you look at this one.
We shoot here, we don't already know.
Yeah, and all of our personnel are trained, or volunteers, everybody has to carry their ID. It has to be visible at all times. And in here, I have a stack of all my training with the Red Cross and the cards I've got from other places. And I always carry, so anybody been here in the service, in the military?
Well,
I
was a military wife.
I've been a couple of days here.
You've been in a dormitory or two, haven't you?
Do you guys know what a P-38 is?
Yes.
Can opener?
Yeah.
I've got one from, yes. It's a can opener.
One on my key ring here, it's P-38.
It's hard.
It comes with C rations and K rations.
Yeah.
So good.
It's the old-fashioned can opener. And I never go out on an emergency without it.
Did the sheriff's department do this?
No, ask Cooper. He had to get the information, and then he sent it through to the state DMV and the DMV.
Well, this is what we talked about doing. This is the concealed carry.
Yeah.
We were talking about the sheriff's department does those locally here.
And you went, yeah, ours
And
were just.
that's what we were talking about doing here, which is, I can pass that around if I want to see it. But it's just, Mary Jane's got two of them. She's got two aliases, right? But anyway, it's just a concealed carry permit for a weapon. But the county commission, the sheriff's department has the facilities to do this up there. All they have to have is the mask. We can do the same thing for the OES up there, get an identification card made right there locally in the county. Don't have to go to DMV.
Ours had to go to the DMV because we didn't have facilities in the county in Talbot.
Well, I talked to the sheriff about it. He's, I don't know whether or not here today, but I talked to the sheriff about it. He told us that we could get the mask for the camera done, which we'd have to have one done that way. Then they would take the picture and fill in the information there on their computer. It's just a, when you go get your concealed carry, you get your name, your address, and everything. Everything's done right there. They can take the picture and everything, because I personally hate going through security at the courthouse. And they say, why don't you get an ID card? And I say, I don't know one of those. If you're emergency services or something like that, then you can have one, and it would be separate. It wouldn't give you any rights other than just on seat or something like that. So that's what we're thinking about trying to get there.
Years ago, Tyler, we had a drill, and it was a hazmat situation, and all our volunteers were coming in, and we had one guy. We loved this guy. Great man, but he was very elderly, and sometimes he was one of those persons you just love him to death, but you really don't want them involved because there might be a problem. Well, he was sent to a side street to be security. Nobody was allowed to come in without their identification. So we put him down there knowing that he was safe, wouldn't interfere with anybody or whatever. Well, about a half hour into everything, there's this big commotion. This man, the incident commander, was late, and he came up the side street, and he forgot his ID. So this man turned him around, and I know Chris, because we're working with him in Martinsville, and Chris was just hopping mad. He said, I'm the IC, and the guy said, I don't care who you are, you don't have ID. You don't have a driver's license or nothing else. He turned him away. Chris said, go home and get his ID.
Well,
She fits where?
And as it turned out, that guy performed the best duty that day than the rest of us. Opening inspections. What you're looking for is any damage to see prior to opening. You want to know what damage is already there so you don't have to pay for it when you leave. You want to make note at the opening. Is toilet paper needed? Paper towels? Soap? Food? What do you need at opening? It's what you saw when you selected the site. Let's say when you selected the site, they had 3 days of food on hand. Well, the day you open it, that food might not be there. So this is basically just re-inspecting, noting what you have and don't have. Decide the final placement of staff and equipment. You might want, that would be where you decide where you're going to put the staff, what conference room you're going to use, or it will be where you're going to put the dormitory, how you're going to set it up. where your sign-in and out sheets should be. And you should have a sign-in out sheet with clients and the staff separate. Make sure the owner of the building signs the paper with the damages on it. We see Judge Judy on a regular basis say, well, did he acknowledge that there was damages? No. Did you take pictures? No. You lost. You got to pay for it. You can't prove that it didn't happen on your watch. So take pictures. And in our county, we got iPads, really cheap ones that Cooper has. We take pictures. And it's sent into the main server at the LEM office, so we have evidence. Closing inspection. Opening is not going to be really hard because you already have basic information on it. Opening is a quick thing. Closing inspection is going to be completed by the owner of the building, the shelter director, and or the LEM director. Closing inspection. Everything has to be clean, put away. I brought in a handheld steamer that I just bought, a little kit, so that we can sanitize things. After we wash things down, then we use the steamer to really sanitize. All equipment has to be accounted for and returned. You have to make sure that all your equipment is there. Do your inventory, see what you've got, what you don't have. Everybody in the shelter has to be out of the shelter, signed out. If you have a problem with somebody who's homeless, if they were living under that bridge before you open that shelter, they got to go back to the bridge. You are not running a Hilton. You are not running a homeless shelter. And that may seem cruel, but them living under that bridge is cruel too. It's not your responsibility. When the emergency is over, you're done. Damages. Make sure the owner of the building signs statement of damages, what you caused, and what, say if there was no damage, then he needs to write no damage, nothing seen. And sign off on it so he can't come back 6 months later and say, hey, we got busted here, this is busted, it's your fault. All paperwork has to be turned in and compiled for you. Daily inspection, like I said, you're going to have your inspections. If you follow your inspections, you'll be sure to be ready at the end with all your reports and everything. It'll go a lot easier. This is to be done by the director, the manager, and the safety officer. Daily inspections. You've got to walk around, look for damages. Safety issues, like loose carpet, cots are out of line, there's no aisle, they need to be straightened up so people can get in and out. The cleanliness of the shelter. Is everything getting dirty? It needs to be clean. And you are not a maid service. You need to involve the clients. That serves two purposes. One, they're helping with cleaning, and two, it helps them get back into a routine. But then there's an additional thing here. Keep reminding you, you're not running a hotel, you're not running the Hilton. They need help clean up after themselves. Watch for signs of theft. That means your equipment, anything that belongs to the shelter. They might try to walk off one of the TVs. Keep an eye on it. Keep the shelter clean. Health department will inspect. And our health department did come around. They did inspect. And when he came through the front door, we walked through the front door and he said, you're the director here? And I said, yes. He said, I don't need to look at anything. Because he knows that I'm so strict on some of this stuff. So it wasn't a problem. But if your shelter becomes really dirty and your clients are not being controlled, you might get shut down. Supplies should be restocked every few hours. Check those bathrooms, because the clients you have in the shelter is one group of people, but you're going to have disaster people coming in and out using your bathrooms. And, everybody's moving around, the local cops. Every time I went to feed our clients, our cops were there. Our firemen were, it was the fire station because all our firemen were there. I even had the firemen's families there because we didn't have any electricity for those days. But they all came in neat. Shelter staff. How many in here of you has completed your NIMS? National Incident Management System. Okay. NIMS. The operation of the shelter falls under what's called the logistics section of the NIMS. And everybody in here, there's 100, 200, 300, 400, 700, 800. I've had them all. The 700, 800 are the ones they're demanding you do now, isn't it? They've changed it so much. Yeah, they're all online.
Which one's online?
800.
800.
And if you need an instructor for that, my friend Dave, a retired cop, he can teach it. We work together. the shelter director and shelter manager. The shelter director has the overall responsibility of the shelter. The director is in charge and responsible for the safety. They're responsible for the people in the dormitory. They're responsible for distribution. Anything that's going on in that shelter, the director's in charge of it. Now, the shelter manager has the responsibility of the dormitory. Now, if you have a small shelter, you can combine those two titles. But if you have a large shelter, where the director is worried about safety reports and all this other stuff, you're going to need both. We got vests for our teams. We've got 2 sets for 2 shelters. And our vests have on them, shelter, on the back it says what the title is, shelter director, and the pockets. I would suggest, even if you don't have the vest, that you get some kind of a vest that everybody can put on and put your stuff in your pockets. Because you'll be laying stuff down and losing them. Cell phones, everything. We have our radios, hook them up. Everybody have a vest of some kind, volunteers and staff. It doesn't matter what you use to designate, just have something that you carry. Shelter manager, make sure that the meals are prepared and adequate. You don't want them to bring in enough food to feed 20 people when you really have 50 there. You don't want peanut butter sandwiches every meal because it doesn't help everybody's calorie intake. Healthy. You want healthy food. You don't want them handing out snacks type food. Peanut butter crackers. They should have a meal. And I prefer that at least one meal be hot somehow.
You got butter on toast? Hot meal.
What we did was, because my shelter was so small, and we were scrambling. Like I said, I ran the shelter before we did this, and we weren't expecting it. So what we did was our IGA was open, so I went up there and get a bucket of chicken. But every time I did that, I'd open the front door and there'd be all these firemen standing there waiting. Oh, and the National Guard. You're going expecting, maybe housing them. And they are able to feed themselves with MREs, but if they see you have food, they're going to start with you. The manager interacts with the clients. You help keep them informed of what's going on outside. You help keep them calm. Talk to them. Some people just need to talk to calm down. They've just seen their house washed down Middle Island Creek. They need to calm down. They need someone to talk to them. I want to scream. Somebody listen to me. Provides accurate information as well as misinformation. There are going to be stories coming in from the guys on the road. This guy's going to go up and down the road, and he's going to say, well, this whole block is burned down. Seriously? And you know that there was no fire at all. You have to stop that information. The information you get and give to the clients should only come through the OEM director. Nobody else. Determines the needs of the clients. If you have clients in there who need special diets, somebody who's on insulin, that's a need. You need to determine that. You need to address that to get them what they need to help them live better. If a client needs medical attention, say they need oxygen, that's a need that they need at that moment, and you need to figure out how to provide it. Call other agencies. We figured out that we could call the hospital or one of their suppliers for oxygen, and they could bring it into our shelter. And some of these health agencies, the ones where you buy equipment or rent equipment, they can bring it in for you. Health department, is that right? I don't know about your family, but is that what you would do if you had a client in a shelter?
We don't have any durable medical equipment, no.
No, I mean, if a client was in a shelter and needed oxygen, could you help coordinate?
Yes.
Yeah. So,
What if you have a situation where a client is contagious?
you need to notify health department and they have to quarantine.
That's their problem.
That's their problem.
Well, they're sitting in your shelter, what do you do then?
We're working on scenarios like that. What we're trying to do is, I just talked to the threat preparedness people back there. We've got all the health organizations in the county together, the medical center, all the emergency squads, the Ritchie Medical Center, the health department, the school nurses. We're going to let them work that out. The oxygen, we go to the emergency squad, they keep a supply on hand that can be replenished. Either one of the squads do. Daily meds, The pharmacy's on board with us. They'll work out the prescription needs. The medical center can administer them. That's mainly the reason we brought the health department, or they brought us on board really, is so we can work out these needs. We have mass vaccination areas for pandemics identified. We have routes identified. We have facilities identified for any type of contagious stuff.
And we had, didn't we, over the last year or so, didn't we have a case of TD in the county?
2 or 3.
Yes, we have that.
Yes.
I mean, that's what that's a situation where,
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
especially in like the.
We have at the senior citizens, across from the senior citizens, there's that long garage. It has cots and supplies in it to set up a medical facility there, or the community building. Either one has been designated for that. We got the medical center across the street. So we're working on scenarios like that. So, you know, are we going to get it right 100%? No. Are we going to get it right a lot of the time? We hope. Are we going to make mistakes? Yeah, but we're going to try to take care of it. You know what I mean?
I just thought I'd, bring it up.
Well, that's the real, we've talked about that many times. So we're working on identifying and trying to be prepared for all situations. But, you know, we looked at buildings for a couple of years ago. They talked about pandemics, and we got ready for mass inoculation. Do we have enough law enforcement to move the serum? Maybe. You know, where are we going to store it? Do we have cooler facilities to store it? Well, maybe. But, you know, we're going to work it out. We're going to do something. Right, wrong, or otherwise, we're going to do something. So.
Yeah, that's where a meeting like this, I'm giving you the very basics on a shelter. And when you go home and look this over, you're going to say, well, here's a need, or here's something we need to change. That's the idea of having this class, is you figure out, come up with ideas, get with him, give him ideas on how to solve some of these problems, maybe be the volunteer who can help handle that problem. I made a suggestion at the last LEPC meeting for Tyler County, and the gas companies were there. And what I said was we have a lot of people coming in from out of the county, out of state. They're bringing, some of them are bringing their families. They're going to not only tax our resources, but they're not aware of what to do in an emergency. So I think we need to have like a welcome packet or some kind of information given to them. And I said that the gas companies could hand this out to these guys when they're employed so that they can tell their families this is what you do and this is what you don't do. Cooper turned around, looked at me, and he says, oh, would you be the one to take care of that, Penny? And my comment to him was, yeah, open mouth, insert foot. But we have to worry about those families. If there's a lot of them, you're going to be sheltering them and looking at their needs. Shelter manager helps maintain the rules of the shelter. I do not have a rules list up here. These are rules that you have to make up. We have a huge sheet that they see on the way in, and then they have on their sign-in sheet, there's one page that says, I agree to the rules. One of those rules is lights out. One of them is about drugs, weapons, and Tom Cooper, no swearing, no foul language, and no foul stuff on clothes, no obscene clothing, which could be a problem in today's society. The shelter manager helps with the distribution of hygiene kits. Hygiene kits are your toothpaste, the toothbrush, toothpaste, mouthwash, maybe a razor for the guys, washcloth, whatever you need, a little kit. You can see them on the websites. You can get them from different agencies and even the Red Cross has pictures of little kits. It might be cheaper to put them together yourselves. A little bag and buy bulk and put them together. Or ask the churches. That's what some of us did. And it helps identify the problems with the clients. If a problem comes up with a client who will not bathe, call the health department. That's their problem. Emotional problems. It's not your problem. You identify it, and the OEM director, and he has to figure out how to handle that situation. It might end up being health department. Medical needs, medical problems. I would say that you should have at least one person on site who is like an EMT who is qualified. Might be retired, but they're qualified, so that they can help do an assessment. But you should have at least your CPR and first aid people on site. Somebody who's certified for those. And and reports needs to the shelter director, and if there's no director, then directly to the IC, which would be your director. Logistics officer, this is one of the important people in the shelter. The logistics officer controls all the supplies for the shelter. He's the guy that's going to know where to get what, how to do this. He maintains a log of all items that are given out. If you give out a chainsaw, you need to know who took it. If you give out any type, a flashlight, who's got it, what's the number on it, can I get it back? Radio, who's got it, can I get it back? So that when at the end of the day, you don't have people taking your equipment home with them. This person's in charge of all their inventory. He will get items that are needed, like your porta potties, your showers, food. He's going to call the OEM, tell the shelter director, and then they're going to talk to the OEM director to get those things brought in. During the closing of the shelter, he collects and accounts for all items that have been used. Items that are hard items that are going to be reused need to be cleaned. He has to know where they're at. He also needs to know how much you used of an item. Let's say the paper plates. We used 1,000 for this incident. That helps him say how much you're going to need for the next incident. And it helps with cost, keeping track of your cost. So you need to keep an inventory of all of your assets at all times. At the end of the time, he prepares a report for the director. He gives that to them. He keeps a running log of all equipment hours, such as generators. Information is needed to file FEMA reports. I had a generator. And since I got out of service, I've kind of gone brain dead when it comes to generators. I am not sure what the power is of this one. It's on wheels. It's diesel. And I ran it for 5 days straight, something like that, and still didn't use a half tank. But that information, the moment it was turned on, I had to log it in. The moment we turned it off, I had to log it in. Then I had to read the fuel gauge, how much was there. That information went to my director, my county director, and then that information was turned into FEMA, so FEMA could give us back the money for the diesel, for the fuel that was used. And this will happen if you've got more than one generator. That's what happens. Any equipment that is used that has to be replenished and everything, you need that report. FEMA. Your safety officer can identify safety issues such as loose carpets. I was in a shelter. It was there was a screw sticking up out of the floor. On a military base, it's okay. And their soldiers, they trip. That's their own stupidity. But when you've got elderly people coming in, they trip on that and get hurt, you're looking at somebody getting seriously injured and a lawsuit. And I can remember me throwing a fit and watching, which was such a thrill because I was enlisted, watching a little lieutenant with a thing ask for something, cutting off this bolt for me because I was throwing a fit. That was great. I was in a private, so I could tell him what to do. I had this lieutenant down on his knees chopping at that screw. He has to write and maintain detailed reports of all incidents within the shelter. If there is a fall, he needs a detailed report. If there is a domestic situation, he needs to report that in detail, like write out like a police report, and give that to the director. Because later on there might be a hearing, there might be some kind of a legal action, they're going to need that information. Law enforcement, you need that report, right? Everything. He removes peacefully or with the help of regular law enforcement any persons in the shelter who are disruptive, messing with the other clients. Any persons who are known felons such as sexual predators. You have to tell law enforcement, they need to tell you if you've got one, and they need to remove them or take care of the situation for you. He does at least an hourly walkthrough of the shelter and the parking lot. Walk through the shelter, check for anything that might have been moved that's causing you danger, and he needs to walk through the parking lot because there might be something going on in that parking lot. You know, like if cars being hit, if there's an accident in the parking lot, if there's a car being stolen. He needs to walk. He Prepares a daily detailed report for the shelter director at closing the shelter, prepares a detailed overall report. You have your daily report, and then you do the final report, and do it detailed and turn it into the director. When I was doing this in our shelter, what I did was I just set up my computer. I didn't have internet at the moment, but I just set up my computer and I started doing a daily log on my computer. This happened, and I have notes out of my pockets, little notebooks in my pockets. I would write things down, go into the office when I had a break, sit down at the computer, type it all into the computer, and then I can send off those reports to the OEM director. So our AER was really easy to do because we already had it. And he should do the daily inspection with the OEM or with the shelter director. Kitchen staff, branch logistics. Kitchen supervisors, one in charge. All of them should have food handler's card. Maintain the health and safety standards in the kitchen. Should not accept food from unknown sources. We live in a world where there are terrorists who will deliberately, and sick people, who are deliberately trying to sabotage. You need to prepare 3 meals a day and snacks. Prepared meals, that could be MREs, that could be sandwiches, but there should be 3 meals because that's the way the human body, our society has been set up. If you break that up, you cause stress. Stress makes the situation even worse. Prepared, maintain a sign-in sheet for every meal to provide daily head count. And like I said, you might have 20 clients in the shelter, but you're feeding 50. So just because they're in the shelter does not mean they're signed in for a meal. Everybody has to sign in for their meal, so you know who you're feeding. Prepare a daily report and overall closing report for the shelter director for the AER, the after action report. Sign in and out should be located prior to entering the dormitory. In other words, you probably use that door, you would have your sign in out right over there. And you might want to do something at this door to keep people from coming in the back door without you knowing it, or that door, some way of knowing it. Ensure everyone signs in and out. Ask clients to fill out a family information sheet. Pat's already working on that. And prepares a daily report for the shelter director. That gives us we've got 20 people in the shelter where we just had 3 leave. The sign-in report shows that. Tables should be manned at all times to prevent people from leaving or coming in without staff knowing. New sheets for each day. Every day there should be a new sheet, and you turn in the old ones. Sign in for clients in the dormitory, sign in for staff in the shelter operations office. There should be a separate sign in for staff. That you know who's coming in and out of their command post. Accurate numbers must be kept for the AER and FEMA applications. They need these numbers for your shelter in order to help with the funding of these shelters or to requisition more stuff for you. The man hours are needed to apply for FEMA. At the end of all of this, I didn't know this, I had to sit down with my sign in and out sheets of my staff hours, and I had to sit down and figure out how many hours each person volunteered to turn that into FEMA. The fire department had to have those hours because then they had to turn it into workers' comp. And our police department got funded for the overtime that some of the officers had to put in. So they got that money back. In order to get that money back and get reimbursed for the work you've done, you need to have accurate details and turn it in. Medical officer. Like I said, it might be an EMT, somebody who's at least certified first aid. Responds to medical emergencies within the shelter. Talks with clients having medical issues within the shelter. Refers clients to hospitals needed. If you're not a doctor, don't try to diagnose, send them on to the hospital. Speaks with clients about injuries due to disaster. This health person is supposed to talk to them about hypothermia, heat exhaustion, anything that's going on, if there might be a health issue, like with Charleston, they just had that water issue. You want to talk to clients about how, are you coming in here feeling sick or something, we need to refer you to the health department. Coordinates with the county health department. I'm not having big bold letters. Do not hand off medications. They're not yours. You could be accused of stealing. They're not yours. You're not responsible for them. The client is, and the client is responsible for keeping them safeguarded, keeping them, from getting into the hands of somebody else. That's their responsibility. I've heard stories where they put them in the cars in the parking lot. My suggestion is that if they can do it, carry it in a bag on them. but they're never to be left unattended either. Shelter secretary. This is a luxury. This is the person who collects the daily reports from every section, helps the director prepare the daily report for the OEM, keeps log of all phone calls and conversations in the ops. Phone calls, that can be a real problem. I can tell you, that phone is ringing constantly. You might have 2 or 3 phone lines going at the same time. People want this, people saying that. And when you have, like that truck of ice, or water, it came through Tyler County. We weren't ready for it, we didn't know where it went, but we had to keep an idea on that conversation of what happened. We knew it was supposed to go to West Union, well, it didn't make it. You need to know what's going on in those conversations on the phone. And the OEM director can say, hey, I told Homeland that I needed this amount of water, and they didn't send it. And they're going to say, well, we never had that conversation. Yes, we did. It's right here in my log. Keep those logs. Keeps a record log of all expenses and receipts. As the fire department, as the guys came in, who were working in the shelter, I collected all the receipts, put them together in one little thing, wrote on them what we did with it, and then at the end, they could turn it into FEMA, in the FEMA report. We got reimbursed. Assistant director with daily operations, basically is a right-hand man. Communications officer, handles all radio traffic and keeps logs. If a phone is used instead of radio, the phone logs of all phone calls is kept. This man and the secretary are the ones who take care of those phone calls, one or the other. Establishes communications with the shelter. He's in charge of figuring out how you're going to communicate with your OEM. Whether it's going to be by phone, radio. You do have interoperable radios, right? Interoperable radios are the ones that connect to them. It's like a big circle of towers around the state of West Virginia that all the radios can communicate all over the state. From Tyler County, we can talk to Charleston or Hancock over a radio. But they're very expensive. I think it's what, $3,000 for handheld? Chris? $3,000, $4,000 for handheld. Very expensive. We just managed to get them in our ambulances and police cars. And we're hoping to have one in every shelter. They're paid.
We have radio system in the county, interoperable, just law enforcement, part of them. And some of
about that IRP.
Yeah.
But some of them do, but for the most part, no, we just run highway.
We have it.
We join counties. Our 911 centers.
We have a radio system that we have with our search and rescue team, and most of our members own their own. And it communicates in our county, and they're really good. You might want to try something like that, where you communicate with each other.
Like I said, we've got radio systems, most of them fire department based, or EMS based.
That's still good. That'll still work. Establishes communication, prepares a daily report for the director, and makes sure messages intended for the director get to the director. If you have a message, it's supposed to go to the director of the shelter, and you don't give it to them, there's going to be a problem. Or if you give it to somebody else, give it to the director, there's a problem. You make sure that message gets to the director, where it's supposed to be. Does the opening, daily, and close the shelter director. All right, you're talking about the shelter director. All right, I call it the incident commander if the shelter is the incident by itself. That wouldn't necessarily be the IC. He does the opening, daily, and closing inspections. They have to be involved. Oversees all areas of shelter operations, everybody in the interest of the director. And a director, if you have several smaller shelters, you may only have one director for all those shelters. In other words, if there's only 10 people in this shelter, 10 in this one, one director can handle making sure all these.
Our problem in the county is logistics. We may have a shelter 19 miles out here, 20 miles out here. So
you need a director in each one?
Well, we need a head person in each one. Somebody just kind of, they're not large shelters, but their logistics is the problem there more than anything.
But your shelter manager could do that,
yeah.
And then make the reports to the shelter director at the OEM office. That would work. Hold staff and client briefings daily. Staff briefings should be done at certain times. Sometimes you have to change that schedule a little bit because you've got staff coming in from outside who missed the briefing. Your briefings to your clients, there should be at least 2. One in the morning, one in the afternoon or evening, telling the clients, this is what we're doing, this is what's going to happen, this is what's happening in the area, the disaster area, This is how much improvements we've been able to make on the electricity, anything that has changed. The clients need to know because you're desperate. You've just lost your home. You're desperate for any word on anything that's going on. And as a director, you need to make sure that these people get the right information and not rumors. Especially in tiny areas like ours, rumors can kill you. The briefs, the OEM every morning. Your director should talk to that OEM director at least once in the morning to give a full report. That was one of my problems with trying to tie down Cooper. Cooper, I need to talk to you. Well, I gotta. So OEM directors, afterwards I talked to Tom and said, Tom, I needed you. I needed to tell you what was happening. So that's something the director, and believe me, he's the OEM director, he's busy. He is swamped. So sometimes you have to be patient. Prepares daily report using reports from all sections, uses these for the OEM briefing. So take everything that you got from your daily reports from everybody, and that's what you use to talk to your OEM director. The shelter director is the only person communicating with the OEM unless otherwise dictated. You do not want one of the volunteer staff working in the dorm to call the OEM director for something that could be handled inside. Because it's unnecessary phone calls going back and forth. I don't know about you guys, but didn't you feel like you had cauliflower ear after you got off the phone with that ratio?
The mic did.
Did you feel like you had to say the next person would choke them? You couldn't put it on.
You threatened to choke.
You couldn't put it on speaker because you didn't want everybody else to know what was going on. I was lucky. Part of our fire department, it was part of the building, I didn't have cell service. I was lucky. Maintains a daily log of all conversations pertinent to the shelter operations. The directors should keep their own log of everything they're doing. Make sure that those responsible make corrections as needed for daily inspections. If the floor needs sweep, you need to tell the shelter manager to find somebody to get that done. Or ask the shelter manager, was that done? So just make sure that things are being done by the people who's responsible for it. We'll prepare the AR for or with the OEM. In my case, I prepared the shelter AR myself and then gave it to Tom for his approval. Prepare staff schedules. Keeps records of staff working hours for daily reports in the AR. Preparing staff schedules. When you've got people who've been working hours upon hours, you want it, sometimes you have to throw them out to get some rest. So you're responsible for making sure that your staff is not overwhelmed. They get the rest and take care of it. Important information. All staff members must be 18 years of age or older. I heard, a man told me, that one of the shelters, that during the night, a child less than 18 was responsible for the shelter, and it was a large shelter. They left this child in the ICU, everybody else went home. That can happen. No. 18 years of age or older, and if a 16-year-old wants to be in there, you will be responsible for that 16-year-old too, and hopefully you can get their parents to come with them. But you should not have unsupervised anybody under the age of 18 in there unsupervised. All staff members must be able to pass a background investigation. All staff members must be drug-free. And I'm not saying stuff you got to take from the doctor, I'm saying the illegal. No alcohol, staff and clients. Yeah, it might calm you down for a little bit, but then some people are mean drunks. No smoking in the shelter. Designated an area outside. That's becoming mandatory anyway. If a shelter is open for more than 12 days, then staff members should be given 1 day off and rotated. Susie gets off today, and Sally is off tomorrow. You need to keep these people getting some time off, because if you wear them out, you've lost your shelter staff, and you're not going to run it efficiently, and you might even have staff volunteers walk out on you. So you're running a shelter all by yourself. It shouldn't work more than 14 hours per day, and it should be off for at least 8 hours. I lived just a couple blocks down the street from the fire hall. I remember the third day, I had been putting in 16 hours. I was exhausted. I was hot. I was miserable. I went home, came through the front door, and my bedroom was right off the front door. I walked into my bedroom, and the electricity came on. Hallelujah! So I lay backwards on the bed, just keep my shoes off and lay backwards on the bed, and I'm feeling the air conditioning, and all of a sudden my daughter comes in to talk to me, and the power goes out. because there had been another storm. I can remember looking at my daughter, and she comes off the toilet word, crank. I put my sandals on, go back to the fire hall. It took us another hour to get the generator. We just disconnected the generator from the fire hall, because the fire hall got power before my house did. We just disconnected it, and it had to be manually wired in. It hardwired. There was no plug-in. You just had to hot wire it into the electrical panel. They had just taken it offline. We had to spend another hour putting it back offline. It was on for 3 hours before the power came back on again. So Cooper says, what are you going to do? And I said, it's staying on until tomorrow morning. I'm not going to disconnect the generator again. Not until I know for sure. The public information officer. In a small shelter, it may be the shelter director. If a large shelter, will need to have a designated officer coordinate with the OEM. Sometimes the OEM will use their own public information officer to handle it. Now this is information going out to the media and the public to announce the shelter. No pictures inside a shelter without notifying the clients. Because some of them don't want to be seen on TV. It's their privacy. They're in a bad situation, and some of them don't want to be bothered with this. So what you do is before the media comes in, you announce to people, we have Channel 12 News here. They're going to come in and film. If you don't want to be part of it, could you step out for just a few minutes? And ask them, do you want to be or not? Give them the option. Give only location, type, and basic information about the shelter. Do not give out personal names or information on clients. Privacy Act, follow it. Dormitory operations should have one staff member for every 15 clients. That's in a large shelter. And this is talking about the volunteers other than the manager in the dormitory. If you have 50 clients in the shelter, you've got your shelter manager, and you might want to have at least 2 or 3 others who can assist. Talking to the clients, keeping them calm, assessing what's going on, because it can get really hectic. The dormitory staff is separate from the sign-in out worker. You'll have your staff sign in and sign out in your CP, your command post, and then you'll have a separate sign-in for the staff in the dormitory. It was, I can't remember why we came up with that idea, I'm sorry. But we had decided to keep the volunteers, I know why, because the volunteers coming into the shelter, into the dormitory area, weren't all trained or anything. We wanted people to get an idea of what was going on. Staff interacts with clients to determine needs, calm them, wellness information, and disseminate accurate information. Television, radio for entertainment, so the clients can be informed of disaster. Phone, computers, so the clients can communicate plainly outside of disasters. We tell everybody, set up a system with somebody outside the disaster zone so you can talk to them. And if I'm stranded in Doddridge County, I don't have any way to communicate with my family in Tyler, then I can call my daughter in Indiana, and she can find the rest of the family to tell them, Mom's safe, she's here. So you set up some kind of a family system so they can communicate. You have games for the children, reading material, snacks and drinks. Keep them fed, keep them hydrated, keep them calm. Unclean. This is just a repeat. Valuable items and medications are the responsibility of the client and staff never touches. Unsecure medications could kill kids. No private rooms for clients, period. I'll back that up just a little bit. If you have someone who is a paraplegic, like we had one little girl, if we could have put her in a private room with her family, we would have. That's a special situation. She was across the street from Sistersville Hospital. She was very sick. She started running fever and all that. So she was a hair away from it. She wasn't bad enough to be in the hospital yet, but she was too bad to let her go home with an air conditioner. So we had to keep her there. If we could have given a private room to her, we would have. But anybody else, no private rooms. 1, it shows preferential treatment. 2, if that family, and we all know that there are sexual predators everywhere, and we just talked about them, if there's sexual abuse going on in that family, you just provided them with a private room. If there's domestic violence of any kind in that room, people are under stress. they might go at each other's throats. And the last thing you want is somebody to get stabbed in your shoulder because husband and wife really into an argument. You do not provide any private rooms to anybody. It makes their job a lot harder. If single men on one side, women on the other, don't sleep together. Because some women, especially, would be a little uncomfortable. I'm sure some of the guys wouldn't mind sleeping in the middle of the girls. But families may sleep together with the cots closer. We allowed the family with the little girl. We allowed them to push all their cots toward the wall, and they slept as a group up against each other. That's where they felt safe and took care of each other. Tables and chairs, clients can play games, eat, chat. Cots head to toe, discuss that. Clients, if you notice, I keep saying, clients clean up after themselves. You're not maids. Inspect the bathrooms every hour, especially if it's not high volume. Clean tables every couple of hours and before and after meals. The tables, you should sanitize them somehow, Lysol, Clorox, something, every couple of hours, because people are coming in from the disaster zone, and they may have, if they've been working with the muddy river, they may have some contamination on their hands or their bodies. You want to keep them clean and keep the spread of disease down. Children are the responsibility of the parents. I'm not a babysitter. I don't want to be. I'm glad when I can send my grandchildren home to their mother. Okay? So, I'm not your babysitter, I'm not babysitting. In large shelters and where families have lost their homes, parents may need time to find housing, apply for help, whatever. And you might be able to get the high school students or another agency or another church to help with the babysitting so these families can take care of business. Sex offenders, we already talked about it. They have to notify staff immediately upon arrival that they're a registered sex offender. They do not, and we discover they're a sex offender. The shelter director, will report to the proper authorities. Sex offenders are not on the shelter, they will be housed elsewhere. After action report. This report is made at the end of the disaster. The daily reports of each section are compiled and used to write. Things you will need to have: work hours of volunteers and equipment, daily numbers of people fed and housed, cost of everything, food, necessities, anything you bought during that disaster has to be written down. You can get reimbursed. What went right and what went wrong. That's one of the real reasons we have these reports. If something worked really good, you want to be able to try to repeat that or enhance that. If it didn't work, it went wrong, you want to be able to figure out why it went wrong and correct it. Details on incidents. You may not give the name of an individual if there's a domestic violence. The cops have to be called. In the final big report, you may not give an exact name, but it will be noted that there was a domestic. The details are in the bottom report, the lower reports. But the big report may not necessarily have to have all the little details. You just need to keep those details on file in case you need to pull them later. Ideas to improve the operation of the next shelter. You're always thinking ahead. Okay. I told you before, I'm with the search and rescue team in Tyler. I'm with the CERT, Community Emergency Response Team. Do you have it here, CERT?
Yeah, that's Roland's.
I've already talked, and I got the call to do this county, and we had our LEPC meeting. I announced it in the LEPC meeting. I was so excited. And I said, I was so impressed with Doddridge County that you've already got 16, 18 shelters now. I'm thrilled. You guys are really working hard. I wonder why the larger counties don't have as many volunteers. But I think it's because we are rural. We know that we have to work, we have to take care of each other. Sheltering may not be an issue. If we don't have a big event up in Washington, D.C. or someplace, we may not need shelters here. Our people go to their parents or go to a family member's house or take care of themselves. We have backup plans at home. We don't need to be sheltered always. But this is something you really need to keep in mind in the event that a disaster happens that you need it. And you need to take this information, look at it really close, come up with the what ifs, play the what if this went wrong, if that went wrong, and then figure out how to fix it. Because in a disaster, you do not want to be at a mechanic and trying to figure out how to fix it. It's too late.
You know, the other issue too is the fact that we have a 4-lane running through our county leaves us open from other people from outside areas. I mean, you mentioned DC, Baltimore, et cetera. I mean, that's a whole other issue.
It is.